They proclaimed the word, and there was great joy in that city. Amen. Please be seated. I must confess to you all that I am not a fan of watching the nightly news, and I am horrible at keeping up with major world events. This is not something that I am proud of. I know that it is a total weakness of mine, and I know that I should be more invested, especially as a future faith leader. The problem is that I am too reactive. I cannot always stay calm and level-headed when I watch and see what is going on in our world today. I do, however, like to stay current on all celebrity gossip. My spouse might even say that I'm obsessed. Ask me anything you want about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce at Coachella this weekend to see their friend Ice Spice. I'm your girl. I know the deets. I can tell you all about how Carson Daly and his wife have joined the celebrity trend to sleep in separate beds despite being happily married, a trend called sleep divorcing. And did you know that the Golden Bachelor and the woman he gave the final golden rose to only stayed married for 3 months and have called it quits? Again, I am not necessarily proud of any of this. I'm not, but I believe in being authentic, so I think that it is only right that you know the truth about me now. I am committed to working on my many shortcomings while I am here at Seminary of the Southwest. And so I guess I should begin slowly introducing myself to the nightly news. I don't want to brag, but just the other day, I clicked on a link to an online news article. Baby steps. I was intrigued by a headline that I would consider to be from a reputable news outlet. Pastors respond after hearing that Christianity is under attack. The reporter began his interview by asking a woman who was at a political rally about the shirt that she was wearing. The t-shirt read, "Jesus Christ 2024. When the reporter shared with the woman that Jesus Christ was not in fact on the upcoming presidential ballot, her response was that the particular candidate that she would be voting for was close enough to being Jesus that he might as well be. I took a deep breath and continued to try and listen to how she felt like Christianity in our nation was under attack. And when she was respectfully pressed by the reporter to say more, her response was that she didn't have a specific example, but she just felt that way. In an effort to showcase some sort of balanced reporting, the clip went on to interview local pastors from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to see if they in fact agreed with the woman who felt like Christianity was under attack. They in turn shared their opinions on how certain groups were stoking fears and were fueled by misinformation. Sporadically, other pastors screaming from their pulpits about the dangers of certain political parties were spliced into the segment, and I felt my level of anxiety begin to rise alongside my tendencies to respond reactively. As I grabbed my prayer beads and practiced some deep breathing, what came to my mind was how this one interview sounded an awful lot like where we find ourselves today in our reading from the book of Acts. We begin our reading with, "That day, a severe persecution began against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout the countryside of Judea and Samaria. Stephen had been stoned to death and then buried. Saul was ravaging the church by dragging both men and women into prison for being followers of Jesus. And after reading these 3 short verses, I had to wonder, who am I in this story? Who are you in this story? And who the other might say that we are? Are we the ones who are throwing the stones? Or are we the ones who are burying the body? Are we the ones who are being persecuted? Or are we the ones doing the persecuting? Are we the ones who are staying in the midst of the persecution? Or are we the ones who are being scattered? I believe the answer is yes. Depending on the many seasons of life that we have found ourselves in, and if we are being brutally honest with ourselves, even as Christians, followers of Christ, I believe that we can be all of these things on any given day. I imagine that we have all found ourselves under attack, seeing the other as the enemy. And that is hard to accept and hard to admit. But I have to believe that as followers of Christ, then and now, that even in the midst of the persecution and scattering, the good news of Jesus can bring joy, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. We read that those who were scattered went from place to place, proclaiming the word. Many were cured, and there was great joy in that city. Now, I agree with you who might be internally pushing back right about now. Too polite to throw stones at me. That is easy for you to say, Jennifer, but you have never been persecuted the way that I have been persecuted. You have never been forced to scatter and leave the only place that you have ever called home. My response to you would be, maybe, maybe not. But I have lived through and seen the persecutions of unhoused members of our own city being scattered from their tents under the highway and forced to relocate to the outskirts of town where they aren't as visible. I have lived through and seen the persecution of our state officials who are forcing women to scatter to other states to find medical care. Let us not forget the persecution by our own United States government, who supports leaders in other countries that are unjust, even corrupt, and then deny access to the humans who have scattered from their homes in these countries in search of safety for themselves and their families. I've had conversations with those scattered from their countries for being accused of supporting LGBTQ propaganda and then arrested simply for owning a rainbow-colored umbrella. And yet, even after all that, I do believe that the good news of Jesus can bring joy, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. Maybe the joy comes in looking into the eyes of the unhoused man or woman and offering them a smile or a kind word. Or maybe the joy comes in taking time to hold the woman who cries while sharing with you the circumstances that led her to this place and being forced to make a seemingly impossible decision. Maybe the joy is in speaking to children who don't speak the same language as you. But thanks to the assistance of Google Translate, while they laugh and fill their bellies with pizza and Cheetos, we talk. Or how about the joy in building relationships with people who teach us a different way of living that they brought with them from where they were scattered? As current faith leaders and future faith leaders, we have the opportunity to be the great joy in the cities where God will one day scatter us all to. We have the honor and the privilege of proclaiming the word, the good news of Jesus Christ. We have the opportunity to share words that cure and heal, words that unite as opposed to divide. We have the chance to live in a way that shows the power of the love of Jesus to this hurting world. We have the gift of having the difficult conversations that will hopefully, joyfully lead to transformation. So, is Christianity still under attack, like it was in our Acts passage for today? Maybe, maybe not. The other would say yes. For me, the gift of these 8 verses, alongside the online news report that I watched, was that both reminded me that joy comes in proclaiming the word in a non-reactive, calm, and respectful way. Towards the end of the news interview, the woman who is wearing the Jesus for President t-shirt mentions her frustration with Transgender Day of Visibility being on Easter Sunday. She blamed our current president and tried using this as her proof that Christianity was in fact under attack. The reporter was extremely calm. He didn't say, "You are wrong," or "You have been lied to," or "How can you be so gullible?" He simply asked her if it would help her to know that March 31st is the day that has been set aside for this celebration, and that it just so happened to coincide with Easter this year. Her response was genuine, authentic, even kind. She responded with, "Thank you for correcting me." Is that where there is joy? When we can proclaim truth and there is transformation as opposed to argument? Who knows what seeds might have been planted? Maybe proclaiming the good news is not always about speaking the biggest news in the biggest voice. Maybe the good news is a series of small words in calm voices that one day add up to a life that has been transformed and changed. A life that knows that sharing the good news of Jesus brings joy, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. Amen.